All right, I want to tell you about my first repair. I actually remember my first repair. Now, that's why I became a good repairman because I can remember each repair that I did. And a lot of times it would have a common theme in the problem, and I would know where to look because I've seen the problem before. Now, my father had a Chevy Biscayne. It was a, a white and red Chevy Biscayne. He got it secondhand. And when he got it, it was an automatic. It was his first automatic. And after he bought it, he used to get in the car when it was running, when the salesman showed it to him. So we go pick it up, and my father goes to start the car, and he insists on starting the car in neutral. So people are walking by us. He's in the car and he's trying all the time. Why don't it work? And so finally, my mother asks the guy, and the guy comes over and he says, "Why do you have it in neutral?" "Oh, you start a car in neutral." The guy goes, "That's an automatic. Put it in park." Car starts right up. My father's embarrassed. He's annoyed. Guy showed him up. So anyway, he had the car for about a year or so, and then suddenly, whenever he would change lanes on the highway, the signals wouldn't cancel out. Now my father had bad hearing, and he would make like I don't hear anything, and you're in the car. This da-dung, 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 da-dung. It's very annoying. And cars would come up alongside us and yell at my father, "Turn your damn signals off." This went on for months. And I would sit in the back and I'd say, the signals," and he wouldn't hear me. And I'd reach and I'd pull on the back seat of the chair, his seat, and that would scare the crap out of him. He'd bawl me out. I said, "Your signals." So he'd click the signal off, and then he would change the lane. It would be back on again. So this went on. So finally, he decided to take the steering post apart on the car, and he had it open, and he's moving the lever for the signals, and he goes, I come up on him. He says, "I don't understand how this is supposed to work." And I moved the signal thing. I said, "Yeah, there's a thing that looks like a hand like this, and this one is missing." Hopefully, I got that into frame. The pinky, is that a pinky? It was missing, and on the other side, one's on one side and the other. Both pinkies were missing. So I said, "Those are broke off. That's why it's not working." "Well, how do you know that?" See, that's why I hate when people say to me that. "Well, it doesn't work. You're moving this lever. There's a post that's moving, and it should be hitting something. But it's not hitting anything because one of the fingers are missing." So I look at the two parts, and they have the same number on them. I'm a little freaking kid, but I know it's the same part number. I said, "Take this one out and put it over there." So he does that. And now, when you pull the lever, the signal lever, you see it hitting the pinkies. Pinkies? Yeah, I guess they're pinkies. Anyway, so now he puts it back together, and we're going for a ride. And he keeps testing it. See, that's the thing about my father. When you would fix something so quickly, so easily, it couldn't possibly be fixed. So he put it through all the frickin' tests. And we come in and we parked, and he went in the house, and I heard him say to my mother, "He fixed it. He fixed it." He's like upset. And I never thought about it until later on. Like I said, we started having these problems where he would get jealous whenever I would fix something. And I just have to, it's just intuitive. And my father used to say his father, my grandfather was an asshole. I asked my cousin, yes, he was from another planet sort of thing. He was real smart. And my father, whenever I would do something, he would call me he'd call me Coon. My grandfather's first name was Conrad, which is Coon as a nickname. And I said, "What's the matter?" He goes, "You remind me of my old man. Know everything." I said, "You asked me." See, they want you to stand there and nod like, "Yeah, this is really hard to fix," and I would always show him what's wrong, and then he'd get mad. Okay. But I remember my first repair, and he's like, "Well, how do you know that's missing?" Like, you could see that the plastic was broke on both of them, right and left turn. And yeah, those are the same part number. Took them out, take them out, flip them, and it fixed it immediately. But we'd be driving along, and my mother would get tired of saying to him, "The signal's still on, the signal's on." I'm behind him, and he couldn't hear me, so I would grab his seat, and they were bucket seats. When you pull on it, it would move back and scare the crap out of him. Then he's yelling at you about, "Stop pulling the seat." And there was a strap there by the door that you could get, but I couldn't reach it. I was too small. But I'd say to him, the signal, the signal, the signal, and he wouldn't hear it. And we'd ride along, and then the car would come up alongside. Hey, shut your signal off. And then sometimes my father would actually say, what did he say? I was like, oh my God. But that's what I grew up around. It's a funny story if you tell it a different way, but it's not a funny story if you're the person that says, take this piece out, put it over there, and put this piece. Well, how would that? Just do it. Does it? And then we had to go for a ride to make sure I really fixed it. I said, all you have to do is go get those two parts. Right? That's all you have to do now. Go get two of them, put them in there, and you'll be good a second time. Well, anyway, no, it was fixed. That was it. That's how my father was. He would never go to a place and get a part and come back and put it in. And if he did, he would always have the wrong part because he wouldn't take the part he wanted with him. I learned that early on. When you get a part that you want, buy a new one, you take the old one with you. And then if the guy gives you the wrong one, you bring it back. You bring the old one with you. Hey, this is what I showed you. You gave me this. Where my father would get nervous and he wouldn't take the part back. And this is what I went through. I just want to tell you the funny story about the first thing I fixed. And I'm not talking about, putting a wire back on that fell off, like on the TV antenna on the television. No, we're not that. And the other funny thing would do, to punish me and my sister, my father would take the 5U4 out of the television set, which is the rectifier. I knew it was the rectifier for the power supply at 8 years old, maybe younger. And I had my own 5U4 in my bedroom, and my sister would sit there like, well, what are we going to do now? I said, go get my 5U4. He'd take it with him, and then he'd come back in, and he'd go over and he'd put his hand on the television set, and it would be warm. And he pulled the back off of the set and looked down, and that 5U4 was still missing because I had taken my 5U4 out and put it back in my room in the drawer. Because he pulled it out one night on us, and I had to go down in the cellar and go for the. I knew the chart was on the TV. I knew about looking at the chart. I knew how to take tubes out and test them on the tube tester. I think it was a Hickok, the tester. No, it was something Imperial Instruments. I could see the name. Something Instruments. Superior Instruments. It was a tube tester. I can almost get. It was I think a TV93 or whatever. If you want to go look at tube testers, it's a wooden box. The lid comes off. The hinge. I can remember this stuff so vividly. But my father would come on and he'd check that TV and it would be hot, and he couldn't figure it out. And he knew he had the 5U4 with him. It's so funny. Some of the stuff I could do when I was younger, and I wouldn't squeal. And me and my sister. Basically, she would sit in a spot so she could see the car coming up the street. And the TV stays warm for a while. And my old man, that drove him nuts. But once I realized he was taking the 5U4 out, that didn't stop me. I looked in there. I took the 5U4 out. It says on the chart. I go downstairs, and we had a big box of tubes that were pulled out of other sets. I go through there. I had to read it. I had to, sometimes to get the number to show up, you would rub it on your hair. And the grease from your hair would somehow get on that they would use it. They would etch it with like a sand or whatever, and it would fill that in, and you could read 5U4. But some of the funny stuff. But I had to tell you about my first repair. Well, how do you know that part's missing? It's intuitive. I don't know. How do I explain that? It's like when you're trying to reach something with a stick, and the stick's too short. How do you know the stick's too short? You know what I mean? The part missing was broke. The part was broke, and the pin wasn't meeting one of the fingers. And you look at it, and you look at the other hands, the other fingers, they're longer. So you know right away that it broke, and it broke on both sides. But like, the signal's on, the signal's on, the signal's on. I think that's it. All right, that's it.